Hey everyone. Oh, wait, what? What's it doing? Oh, I clicked yeah. I guess it does that. I'm losing my mind. I thought it did the pew, but that's between the scenes. How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? What do we have? I went and got some coffee. Gonna wake up some more. Who's all here? I saw like 2 or 3 people are watching. So we got some people here right now. Let's take some questions. What are you working on? Chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8. What are people working on? I see I got a message on Discord. The option. Ah, is there something there? Can we go over Canvas content? Yeah, let's do it. Let's take a look at Canvas content quiz 5. I think this is this is for next week, right? I think so. Let's take a look at that. Good to see you here, Ritu. And let's take a look at Canvas content quiz 5. My brain turned off right there. So how can we do this? Suppose the entering freshman. You bet. Yep, let's do that one here next. Look at some Canvas content. And then we will look at Canvas content quiz 5. Okay, let's do a version of the Canvas content quiz right here. So here we go. We'll do one version of the Canvas content, and then we'll do latest question here. Can I increase font size? Really? 2 seconds. I'm going to close out chat and reopen it because right now the chat's a little small for my eyes. I can't see. Office hours, increase font size. There we go. That looks better. Is there 2 seconds? Also, is there any way you have access to all the Canvas content quiz questions? You don't have access to all of them. Basically, you can watch the ones I do in the YouTube video. So it's from the question bank. So we don't put all of them out there, but if you kind of like take the ones you do and you look at the ones in the YouTube videos, I think that's a really good way to do that right there. So write them down, go through the YouTube videos, put them on flashcards. I think that's a great way of doing it, the ones you get and the ones you see in the YouTube video. So if you go to the sections I do and you write them down, that's a great way of doing it right there and great practice. Let's go take a look at this Canvas content. Coffee. When doing, oh no, it's still hot. It's good though. When doing a decision tree, categorical variables with more than 20 levels should what? So we have 3 types of variables. Quantitative, categorical, and identifier. When we have categorical variables with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of levels, we actually do not include them in a decision tree. So categorical variables with lots of levels act like identifiers. Like if I say, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? That's going to have a lot of levels. And we do not include those in a decision tree. So categorical variables with a lot of levels, we do not include decision tree. Decision trees can both use. So I'll show you what a decision tree is. A decision tree, which we'll be talking about next week, is a way of doing analysis with lots of X's. So decision trees, when you think about the end of the class, when we're talking about like why do we use things, a decision tree is going to be under analyze, predictive model, partition. So if I want to analyze, let's say something like people's, whether or not people are in Greek life. Do we have Greek life on here? There we go. And now let's put in a bunch of variables. Now we don't want to include things with lots of levels like favorite phone app. This is where we remove out the identifier variables, favorite phone app, major, and if you notice, I also removed original row number. So I removed the things that act like identifiers, and I put all my X variables right here. Decision trees can do categorical Ys, categorical X's, categorical quantitative Ys, quantitative X's, and they make... Oh, well, then just make it without that in both. Jump. Why don't you just say, well, then don't put it in both? So Jump got mad because I put the X variable or the Y variable as an X variable, and it said, no, no, no. I say, okay. Then let's go right here. Let's put all the X's in. I'm removing out the Y variable this time. Pretty important to do. And we're going to put this in right here. And then we're going to take and put Greek life right here in the Y variable for the predicted Y variable of interest. And we can color the points to see who's in Greek life and who's not in Greek life. So all these blue dots right here. Now, what does this look like right here to you? What does this look like? This is a good review for the test. It looks very much like this graphic, which is a categorical display of data. What graphic does this look a lot like? What graphic does this look a lot like right now, right here? What graphic does it? Looks a lot like a mosaic plot. And so it's basically splitting things into groups right here. And you can see someone's distance to campus explains whether or not they're in Greek life. Like it explains 6.6% of the variation. You see an R squared right here, which is the variation in Greek life explained by the decision tree. So these concepts we were going over today will be important next week also. Like this looks a lot like a mosaic plot, splits things into categories. And also we see here 6.6% of the variation in Greek life is explained by someone's distance from campus. And now we're adding in their family economic level. So the people most likely to be in Greek life right here are the people who live on campus or a walking distance who are in upper class, middle class, or upper class. And we can split here again. And then the people who, well, that's interesting. See, that goes the most likely. Oh, there. Well, there's, yeah, interesting. So we'll remove that. But I mean, what did Brian pause the screen and go back and be like, what did Brian find out there? Oh yeah, sure. Well, it's not the first variable we split on, but it's later down on the tree. This is real data collected from students. So we see here Greek life is associated with how close you live to campus. And once again, this doesn't mean like you've got people over here who live far away from campus who are in Greek life. It doesn't mean someone will follow this trend. It's just the trend in the data. People who live really far away from campus are very unlikely to be in Greek life. And the people super unlikely to be in Greek life are going to be the people who live super far away, who had higher GPAs. And actually, I think all 45 of these people right here, none of them were in Greek life. So this is what a decision tree does, is it breaks the data into parts. It's a really good way to analyze data because you can take a bunch of X variables and it's actually going through, like distance from campus was super important. Like someone's distance from campus really tells you a lot about whether or not they're in Greek life. Then we also see their family economic level, your GPA, but that's down here within this, like people who live far from campus who had a higher GPA. It's not GPA is associated with Greek life, it's within the variables. But a decision tree takes a bunch of X variables and a bunch of Y variables and analyzes them. So it can definitely do quantitative and categorical variables. We saw your GPA, which is quantitative. We saw your distance from campus, which is categorical. A decision tree uses multiple X variables. We literally just saw that. A decision tree, this is the leaf report. Do I still have my decision tree up? Tell me I didn't close it out. Of course I closed it out, right? When you make a decision tree, oh no, that's not the decision tree. I said, yeah. I had to have closed it, didn't I? When you make a decision tree, in a decision tree, we have what is called a leaf report. So when we predict something, I'm just going to do a very quick decision tree right here. So here's another decision tree, recolor the points. And basically, high school GPA is a variable that's helping us predict somebody's gender right here, where we can see people who were male were more likely to have, or excuse me, if your GPA was higher, you were more likely to be female. But that doesn't mean if you have a high GPA, you are female. But we just see an association right here with the GPA and the splits between the groups. So to make this really easy, we have a leaf report down here, which actually shows us these groups. So you see here we have group 1 and group 2. And so in group 1, we see these are the people who had a GPA less than 3.64 and 37% were female. That's the red bar right here. You can also see it up here. There's the 37% that were female. And this is kind of like the conditional display. Remember back with conditional displays within here, these individuals. There you can see it right here, 37% and 62. And then you see for this group, 64% and 36, 64% and 36. So the leaf report shows you inside each of these. These are called the leaves of the tree. So we have here a leaf report on this question. And it says, what percent of females use a reusable bottle? And that was the variable of interest we were predicting, whether or not they use a reusable bottle right here. And so this is the yes or no for using a reusable bottle. Now, I'm going to ask a question, so I'm going to pause here for a second. Which groups on here are the female groups? Groups 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4. Which groups are the female groups? This is a pretty tough one. This is the toughest question we've come across right here, which a lot of people would get to this and be like, what do I do with this info? Which groups right here are the female groups? So look at the way the groups are labeled. These are females who have broken a bone. These are females who have not broken a bone. These are males who are less than 20 years old. These are males who are greater than 20 years old, greater than or equal to 20 years old, at least 20 years old. So which groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, which are the female groups? 1 and 2. How many females have you use a reusable bottle? How many females use a reusable bottle? How many females use a reusable bottle? How many females use a reusable bottle? So first answer this, how many females use a reusable bottle? How many? So how many females use a reusable bottle? So not that, but you're on the right track if you're looking at this and this. That's exactly right. 326. We got that by going to 150 plus 176. That's how many females use a reusable bottle. And then we need to take and add to this 46 plus 89. And Brian just found the total amount of females. Does that make sense? This is the total amount of females. Great job, Reese, right there. 326 divided by this. And there's the percentage right there. Does that make sense? So we found out how many females use a reusable bottle out of the total amount of females, because everyone in these groups is female. It's just the yes, no on do they use a reusable bottle. Like these are females who do not use a reusable water bottle. They are female and they have broken a bone. These are females who use a reusable bottle. They are female and they have broken a bone. Yes. This is, I do not use a reusable bottle. I am female and I have not broken a bone. This is, I do use a reusable bottle. I am female and I have not broken a bone. So all of these people are female. And with that, we see these are the ones who use a reusable bottle. And the answer is 0.707. So it wants it as a percent to 2 decimals. We got this. We got this. Look at that. Someone tell me if I get it wrong. Tell me, Brian, you change it. Okay, there we go. What is the most significant split in the tree? The first split. The first split controls the tree. When we do these splits in the tree right here, the first split really controls. It's like, what is the most significant turn when you drive to California? This is decision tree. Oh, Dan, good to see you, Dan. This is decision tree. We're already like, we're 1/3 the way done with Stat 201. We're 1/3 the way done. This is chapter decision tree. If you're driving from Tennessee to California, what is the most important turn you take? Would it be the first turn you take driving to California or the last turn you take? What would be the most important turn you take driving to California? You're going to say, I'm going to drive to California, and you turn out of your driveway, and you're going to head in one direction. What would be the most important turn you take when you drive to California? Think if you mess up this turn. Would you rather mess up your first turn to California or your last turn, the first? Does that make sense? When this tree starts splitting, the most important split's going to be the first split. That kind of controls the direction of the tree. So we should get everything right. I like doing a double check. Woo! Usually, so if I was seriously doing this, like if I was taking it as a student, I would do a double check. I always go through and check my answers. I rework my work. Like I'm taking a test. I'm one of those like checkers. Like I kind of am. I check things. I'm like, okay, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. So easy to like forget a negative sign. If you were in office hours, you remember that. It's so easy to just overlook something and make very small mistakes, even when you know the material, which I hope I do. I think. So let's go over here. Layla had a question. Let's hop back to space. Good review of the material we'll be doing Monday. That is Monday's material right there on decision trees. And you see some concepts we've already been covering out. Reese, if you have a question, let me know. Ritu, if you have a question, let me know. We're going to get Layla's question here with a little bit of music in the background. My favorite song. We had a visit from the boss today. Start a class. Chapter 7, material. I need to buy a little thing for my desk. Chapter 7 quiz, right? There we go. Suppose the entering freshman at a certain college have a mean combined SAT score of... U-Bot talking about the... This is chapter 7, right, Layla? Yay, found it. You ready? Let's do this. I think, actually, let me do something real quick. Yes. I'm going to put this in the blueprint, maybe. That's not... Yes, here we go. Okay. Let me... I'm going to update something real quick. This will make life way easier. I'm going to update in 2 spots. So 1 second here, Layla, as we... So be looking at the course right now. And in the course, go over to the module section, and you'll see Regression Solver Pro 3.2. And I'm actually going to go put it in the blueprint, so that way it exists out there. So next time I import a course, it puts it in there, because I've noticed that over the semesters. So I'm removing the Regression Solver, and I'm going here and uploading the Regression Solver Pro. So if it's not on your page, go back and relook at the modules page. Regression Solver Pro has now been added in. Let me increase indent, and let me go over and change the blueprint real quick, so that way we don't, next time we copy the course, we have it. The blueprint course. Sometimes I realize like all the different things we've done over the years and the improvements we've made to the course and all the things we've changed. It's been a lot of changes. Okay, we almost got this. I'm adding it to the blueprint just because I'm like, oh, I'll do it later. And then I'm like, no, if I say that, it takes me like just a few seconds right now. And then I'll forget. And the next semester I'll be like, no. And they'll be like, hey, everyone, we've got the new one. Okay, there we go. Okay, it's updated. We're good to go. Do we have to download anything from lockdown? Yep. I mean, no, you don't have to. Layla answered it perfectly. You do not have to download anything. And I'm going to send out an announcement here in a little bit with a check your browser. So Ritu, if you're wondering how the lockdown works, I'll send out an announcement right here. Thank you, Layla, right there. Let's throw some 20 points. Layla is correct. You do not need to download anything. So I'll send out an announcement with a check your browser type quiz. Exactly. So you should be good to go. And so it like goes through and does everything for you. Yeah, so Ritu, I'll send out an announcement with a check your browser thing. So make sure to run the check your browser. And if you have any issues, let me know. Like, be like, hey, Brian, this won't work. I think there's some issues with Chromebooks. So if you have a Chromebook, let me know about that. Let's hop over here to this question. Thank you, Ritu, for asking that. Let's go over here. Let's do the question. Okay. So suppose the entering freshmen at a certain college have a mean combined SAT score of 1226 with a standard deviation of 129. Ah, yes. In the first semester, these students attained a mean GPA of this with a standard deviation of this. A scatter plot showed the association to be reasonably linear, and the correlation between this was this. So this is R. Complete the parts below, and so we have to write the equation. So this is where, this is the worst part of this problem. This is why I created the Regression Solver Pro. So what you need to know is you need to know notation. So let's practice the notation. Let's go over here and get our notation up. I'm going to circle some values and I'm going to give them numbers. We are predicting. So we're predicting someone's GPA. Go ahead. See if you can identify any of these values. Oh, nice. Thank you so much, Layla, right there helping out. Can you identify any of these values? Sure, we'll change colors for variables. Thank you, Word. A little color coding to help out right here. Can you identify any of the notation for any of these variables? What is like 1? What is 2? What is 3? What is 4? So remember, GPA is the Y variable of interest. You won't use it. You use pictures for it, Ritu. You'll use like pictures of it. We were talking about that a little bit last night during the review, and we did this problem right here, which showed like a picture. So definitely check that out. So you'll use like pictures of the applet. So it'll be like pictures, and then you'll have to solve and give an answer like this right here. So good question right there. So what are any of these right here? It says they had this is going to be the variable that's the X. This is going to be Y. So this will help us using the solver right here. So you should go to the to our course page, and let's go to the course page and go here to this. Go here to modules and scroll down, and you will see Regression Solver Pro. We're going to be using this. There's the Regression Solver Pro. And so I'm going to be using this here in a second. Make sure to go to this. It should pull it up. And here's the regression solver poll. Make sure to then download it and use it. Shows it here in the preview window. So what notation are any of these? This is the tough part. Like knowing the notation. Like we're not going to solve this by hand. The tough part of this problem is going to be the notation right here. So what are any of these in notation values? So this says right here, let's underline it. So what are any of these? What is value 5 going to be? Just in notation, what is value 5 going to be? Value 5 is the what? And then like notation-wise, what is it going to be? It's the what between the two variables. And then we'll go and look at the solver. Correct. The R value, the correlation value. Exactly. Great job, Layla, right there. That's the correlation value. So that's the value of the correlation. So let's go over here to the Regression Solver Pro. Solver for when summary statistics are given, the correlation. So we have here the correlation value. So we can go and look at that correlation value right here. The correlation value is 0.41. We could almost get it on the screen at the same time. Is that viewable? It's a little hard to see, isn't it? Oh, look at this. We might be able to do it. I guess if we put it over here then. Let's do that. Trying to get them both on the same screen so we can see it. And if we go here, and we go here, and now we have it. So do you see any of the other values here? It says we're looking for the what of the x variable and the what of the y variable. So you see here we have the mean of x and the mean of y. So we have to know which one is x and which one is y. Remember, we're going to predict someone's GPA from their SAT score. So the mean of the y variable, which will be GPA, is 2.64. So this will be 2.64. That's the mean of the y variable. And the standard deviation of the y variable is 0.51. Please tell me if I enter something in wrong. I'll get the whole problem wrong if I do. So that's the mean of the y variable. The correlation right here, which is correlation, is I believe 0.41 or something. 0.41, you see it right there. The correlation between the two variables is 0.41. And now we need the standard deviation of the x variable, which we're using SAT or something to make predictions. So the mean is going to be 1226 and 129, 1226 and 129. Does that make sense? Would you do, I don't think, wait. Oh, you're doing like, no, you wouldn't do that right there. So you would, you might be using the formulas. You might, Layla, are you using the formulas from the slides, which you can do. If you want to use the formulas from the slides, which actually maybe you have the right formulas right there. I'm trying to remember. This is the way I did this one right here. I put a calculation error behind here. I think you might have the right formula. So if you want to do it via the formulas, you can. If you want to use the solver, you can also. You won't have to solve. The reason I made this solver here, it sounds like you're using the right formulas, which maybe is easier sometimes. I made this because a lot of times people would have decimal errors. So I just wanted it to be, and I also care more about the notation. Like if you know the notation, it's just plug into the formulas and solve. So if you want to use the solver to check your work, it's a great way to practice. And so now we get right here, also the solver lets you solve for values. We get here the intercept and we get here the slope. So there's the intercept, there's the slope. Let's go right here and we can put in the value of the intercept. Really? Oh my gosh. So round to 5 decimals. The intercept. Slope rounded to 5 decimals. Explain what the y-intercept means. This is somebody who has a SAT score of, oh no wait, the y-intercept. The y-intercept represents freshmen who had a 0 score. The y-intercept represents the predictive freshman SAT score. No. Wait. Correct. The y-intercept represents the predicted freshman's GPA score. If they scored a 0 on the ACT, it has no practical interpretation. Yep, Sound of Silence by Davey504 right there. A little Sound of Silence. So The y-intercept represents the predicted freshman GPA because we're predicting that if they score a 0 on the ACT or on the SAT, it has no practical interpretation. Interpret the slope right here for each 1 unit increase in the score on the SAT, for each increase on score on SAT. Wait, what? For each additional point on the SAT, the model predicts the freshman's GPA will increase by a value of the slope coefficient. Yeah, of course. We'll do the calcium question next. You got it, Caitlin. Thank you for asking. Here's the really great thing about the solver I wrote is with the solver I wrote, you can go right here and you can just plug in 1400. And guess what it does? It solves for you the answer. So we should be able to copy paste that answer right here. And there we go. So all we're doing is taking 1400. This is what the solver does for you, is it goes right here and plugs 1400 right here. So you would take 1400, times it by this, and there are a lot of decimals going on in the background, and we'll make sure we get the same answer, 65274. And so we get this right here, which we should confirm is the same answer. So everything looks good. Based on this, how effective do you think SAT scores would be predicting in someone's academic success during the first semester of the freshman year of college? Explain. Oh no, we got a subjective one. We hate the subjective questions. Okay, let's take a look. Oh, the correlation's kind of weak right here, which means the R squared is going to be low. It's not that they have no relationship. That one's ruled out. Oh wait, here it is. It says are somewhat effective, are very effective. Okay, I'm going to go with somewhat effective. It is near 0.5. This is, you see, I like that this gives the value right here. This is saying are very effective. The higher the R, the more effective it is. That should be right. I'm always worried about the subjective ones. As a student, would you rather have a positive or negative residual? Explain. I love this question. Classic question. Very easy to answer. When you think about having a positive or negative residual, would you rather be above or below what this model predicts for your GPA? Would you rather be above or below what this model predicts? Here's positive residual zone, negative residual zone. Would you rather have a positive or negative residual? Just put positive or negative in the chat. Which one of those would you rather have right here? Which one would you rather have? A positive, would you rather be above what the model predicts, which is positive residual, or below what the model predicts, which is negative residual? Which one would you rather be? Because residual is your actual minus your predicted. Like if this is you right here, you are this point, then your prediction from the model would be this. That's your y hat. And your residual is the distance you are away. So that's your residual, which is a positive residual. So I would much rather be a positive residual, which means my actual observed GPA is higher than the model would have predicted to me. It means I overperformed. So a positive residual would be better. It prevents having a higher GPA than the GPA the model predicts. Today is not my day. Everything should be correct up there. That says the y-intercept. No. What did I do? What did I do? That has to be correct. Is it this one? Is it this one? No, it can't be. Well, no, it is this one, isn't it? Really? Please tell me if you got that wrong. That is not fair. That is so not fair. Remember how I say I hate the subjective questions? Please tell me. This is another reason to watch Office Hours. 1, you know the answer to this question now. 2, if you get it wrong and you watch this and you say, hey, Brian, I got that question wrong that you got wrong. Can I get my points back? Layla and others, can you confirm I give you points back for questions I think that are not fair? That's really ridiculous. And I've got a My Pearson rep that I can speak to about this and be like, that subjective question needs to go. I see these questions each semester and I hate them. Like, why don't you remove them, Brian? It's not like you got the power, right? I need to go to the thing. And I will give you points back. So don't worry. If I get something wrong like that or you forget a negative sign, then we just say, it happens. It happens. I want, just keep working hard. Once again, Brian got that. It's just, that gets to me. I need some more sleep, maybe. Let's do the next question. We're going to ace the next question. Not today, my Pearson. Not today. Let's do this. Let's get the next question going. Okay, next question going right here. Can you do the calcium question? Is that the, which one is it? Caitlin, can you give me more? I think there's a few calcium questions. Can you put the start of the question in the chat? I think there's a few Chapter 7 calcium questions. There's a few calcium questions for Chapter 7. Or maybe there's only one. Wait. Here it is. It's about the hardness of water, concentrations. I think I found it. I think I have found the question. Here we go. Let's check it out. Awesome. We got mortality, fun topics. And what do we see here? We see a negative correlation. We see that the line would go downward. So immediately we start to notice in this question right here, there's a fairly strong negative linear association. Towns with, and so this is where people might get confused. The more calcium in the water, the harder the water is. So towns with harder water, which is more calcium. I've had people ask me, like, what does harder water mean? It means more calcium. Towns with harder water tend to have lower mortality rates. So this is harder water, more calcium, tend to have lower mortality rates. You can use the classic, like, what is the differences between these? This one says fairly weak, but that is really strong. And you can probably see, does it give us the, it gives us the R squared. 91.6% of the variation in mortality rate is explained by the variation in calcium. So that's a lot of the variation. This is a very, very strong model. So this one right here is just knowing what the output is. When you look at this output on the screen, we need to be able to identify important parts. Sometimes they give you, oh, they don't do it on this one. They give you the standard deviation. I think they're talking about residual standard error right there, but they should make that a little more clear with their notation. Come on, my Pearson. This here is B0. This here is B1. In BAS 320, we talk a lot more about these concepts over here, the T ratio. So if you're wondering what these other things are, we do talk about this in Stat 201. This tells us that the slope is not equal to what? That value that Brian's highlighted is how we know that the slope, or how we have good evidence that the slope is what? Good review of today. That value I've just highlighted right there is how we have good evidence that the slope is not what? Like the p-value here was low, so we reject the null, and we have good evidence with this p-value right here that the slope, which is the coefficient of the x variable, is not equal to what value? With this p-value right there. When we're looking at the regression output, which we would assume the slope is equal to 0. Well, that's the answer. We assume the slope is equal to 0, but because the p-value is low, we reject the null and have evidence that the slope is not equal to 0. And that's what this value right here represents. It's a test on the slope. Great job, Caitlin. So this is testing if the slope is equal to 0. We go through these other bits in 320. I don't want to go too much into detail. I could tell you all about them, but let's focus on the question. So these are the coefficients. This is B0, which B0 goes right here, just to make it clear. That's B0, that's B1. These are not the answers. It's just what goes in there. So B0 is the coefficient of the intercept, 1741. I think they literally just want us to type these answers, but make sure, don't forget, you'll lose a point like I sometimes do, to put the negative sign here because the slope is negative as denoted by the line going down and the slope being negative. Interpret the slope in context of the problem. For each additional 1 unit increase in calcium, we expect the mortality rate to decrease by 3.121. So for each 1 unit increase in calcium, the model predicts a decrease in the mortality rate. Explain the meaning of the y-intercept. Now, the y-intercept looks a bit illogical. The y-intercept would be when calcium is equal to what? Which I guess this might be possible. It's probably possible. I don't know if you need calcium in water. The y-intercept would be when calcium is equal to this, we expect the mortality rate to be equal to this. So the y-intercept, which would be back here somewhere, we can't see it, but the y-intercept would be when calcium, so I'll draw it here on here. It'd be somewhere over here, and here's the y-intercept up here. When calcium is equal to 0, we expect the mortality rate to be something like, was it 1700 maybe? So it's back there. It's not 29. Some people look at this and they say, oh, the y-intercept is when it's equal to 29. It's like, no, it's always when x is equal to 0. Sometimes the graph just doesn't extend out that far. It's just how we graph it. But it's always right here is where the y-intercept is at. It's always when x is equal to 0. I had an A+ student got every question right on the exam except for what the y-intercept was. He said, well, that's the y-intercept. It's where it intercepts that axis. And I'm like, but and he's like, well, then you should make, I don't know. I was like, he brought up some good points. So from then on, I've always tried to make that clear because very, very good student and got that question wrong. I felt bad. So we would have the model predicts that a town with 0 parts per million calcium when x is equal to 0 would have a mortality rate of, and then this is the coefficient of the y-intercept. The largest residual, which is the town we missed the most by, so it has a positive residual, and that's probably, it's hard to see which one that is. It's probably this one. If I had to guess which one is the largest residual, none of them are really bad. The largest residual is, I probably do that pretty bad because it doesn't look like. Sure. And it's saying that's, oh, well, now it's going to be this one. This one's the largest residual. And just by virtue, by the way, I drew it. So it's saying this is something like 66. And with that being 66 right there, that means it's above. So it says here, 66.8, what does this mean? The town had 66 more deaths than the model predicted because we're predicting deaths. So and then they're saying fewer. Yeah, it's above. Positive residual means it's above the line. Negative residual means it's below the line. So this is the negative residual zone, and this up here is the positive residual zone, and anything on the line would have a residual of 0. A little bit of a linearity issue with the way I drew it, or maybe it does have a linearity issue. The hardness of a certain town's municipal water is 118 parts per million calcium. Use this equation to predict the mortality rate. So what are we going to do? If I put in, because I misread. Oh, of course. No, yeah, no, Layla, that's exactly, Layla, that is the quintessential example of when I like to give points back. Like, you obviously know how to do the question, so I don't want you to redo it. Just send me a quick email, or when I'm between sections right here, I could give you the points back during office hours. So Layla, it's the perfect, hey, Brian, can I just get these points back? Of course. So what are we going to do? We're going to go right here and plug in 118 parts per million, and it wants the prediction. So we're just going to plug that into X right here. It was 118. Please correct me if I make errors, especially if I type in the calculator wrong. You're welcome, Layla, anytime. 1741.42 minus this. There it is right there. A lot of times you want to look. Oh, whoa. That's how I make errors, is I click sometimes in here. For each additional decrease in mortality. Got it. Good, that's right. For additional, okay, good. And we were doing 118. So 118 is in here somewhere, and you trace up, and I got an answer of what again? Yeah, that looks to be about right. If you trace up and over, like where the line would go through at about 118, that looks to be in the neighborhood of that answer. So I think that's good. Double check your answer by looking at the graphic. It's a good way to know if your answer is completely out there or if it's a pretty good answer. 3 decimals, we got it. Explain the meaning of r squared. So r squared is the percent of variation in y explained by the variation in x. So 91.6% of the variation in the mortality rate can be accounted for by the calcium. 91% deviation, 91% in the linear model. What you went? So that's interesting. Let me read this one. So that's interesting. I'm like 99%. Really? I need more coffee, everybody. What is up with me today? This is my worst performance ever. I feel bad today about this. Like, I'm like, what am I doing? Did I misclick something here? Predicts a decrease in mortality. We're going to go through question by question. It's the linear model. I don't like the way they describe that. I saw that at the corner of my eye. 91.6%. How did I miss variability? 91.6% of the variation in y can be explained by the variation in x. Oh, I'm like mad at myself right there. That's, yeah, the variability. 90, yeah. That's not a horrible interpretation. It's not good, though. I'm just like mad at myself for that. Wait. Oh, it's the context. Per 100,000, it's the context. What does all data need? It needs context. So the town had this many more per 100,000 because the data is mortality rate per 100,000. So they're like, do you remember the context? Do you remember the context? Did you see the context? Oh, Caitlin, I'm doing questions too quick. You got to do that double check. You got to read all the answers. We need to slow it down. I'm only allowed one question wrong per day, and this has not been my day right here. This has not been my day on these questions. I'm so bummed. I'll go like a whole week with no question wrong, and then I think it might be I don't know. I was up a little bit too late last night. That's why I'm already on my second cup of coffee. What question should we do right now? What question? Let's do another hard question, and we're just going to ace it. You know what? We're going to speedrun a question. Let's do a random question. We're going to speedrun it, and we're going to ace it. Let's make this happen. We'll put on some music right here. Let's just show my Pearson what's happening right here. You ready for this? We're going to get a question right here. Trying to find one we haven't done yet. We've done a good bit of them. We did that one yesterday. If you have a question, let me know. Yeah, anytime. Yeah, we can definitely peel off other questions. Let's just destroy. This is residual plots. Let's do a residual plot question. Let's get our energy back. If you doubt yourself, you get questions wrong. When you doubt yourself, you get question wrong. Let's get some positive energy. Let's remove the doubt. We're doing this right here. We're bringing back that energy. We're removing that doubt. You ready? Look at that first plot right here. It's got a problem with what? Notice the points fanning out right there. The fan pattern. The model is getting water, and these are all residual plots. The model is getting water as we go across. The model is getting water. We got our energy back. We're not getting anything else wrong. The model is getting water as you go across the values. The model is getting water. Like it starts out really tight right here, and then it gets wider. And this is a residual plot, which when we're talking about a residual plot is going to be your original line just flat. So you take your original line right here, and then you just make it flat, and it's a residual plot. This one's also got the same issue, but in the opposite way. It's getting thicker, so that means it's getting weaker. So the predictive power of the model is decreasing. So be careful. You might think it's increasing, but the predictive power of the model is the strength of the model. So the model actually is decreasing in its power. Does that make sense? It's getting wider. Good to see you here, Krista and Reese. We're going to get every question right here. We're going to ace this. So the model's predictive power is getting weaker. The power of the model decreases. This model right here, ooh, I think they're just pointing to that outlier. See, they're trying to trick me now. The scatter plot indicates no, it's not appropriate. I think they have another fan pattern. Let's look. Yeah, look at that. I think they added a new one this semester. They're trying to trick me. Not today, my Pearson. Not today. The fan pattern indicates that the linear model is not appropriate. The model's predictive power is increasing as it goes across. What do you notice about this last plot right here? Remember, this is a residual plot. This would come from an original plot that looks something like this right here. It would look something like this right here. And then we take this whole plot to turn it into a residual plot, make that plot flat, and now it's a residual plot. So this is the residual plot, and this is the original scatter plot. So what do you notice? Curved and probably low R squared. So the curved pattern, not today, Ma Pearson, not today. Are we going to do another question right here? Should we just destroy another question? I just get questions wrong just to show you it can happen. Just so I can put that disclaimer out there that if you get something wrong and it's small, and you're like, hey, Brian, I just misread it. Yeah, I will totally accept that. We're here to practice and get questions right, and sometimes we make errors. Let's destroy another question. Show my Pearson. Not today, my Pearson. You shall not trick us. Here we go. Another question happening right now. Thank you, Layla. It just happens. It's so easy to like misread or be like, oh, it just happens. Here we go. This one has a very common error that's probably going to catch a lot of people. When we take r squared, how do we get r from r squared? How do we get r from r squared? I'm going to be doing a little work in the background while you think about that. How do we get r from r squared? How do we get r from r squared? So the question right now is, how do we get r from r squared? How do we get r from r squared? It'll still work, but how do we get r from r squared? We square root it, and then we pay attention to the sign. So what do you think usually happens to people when they go to this model and they square root r squared? What do you notice? This is about the price of a car and the age of a car. That as a car gets older, as you would expect, it goes down in price. So when you square root this r squared right here, square rooting r squared, what do you notice? You get 0.9449, but what's the answer right here? It's not. It won't be 0.9449. We can actually find out the answer with analyze multivariate method, multivariate. The answer is actually what? The answer is actually what? It's not point exactly, because it's negative. Notice here, this is a correlation matrix right here where you can see the correlation between the two values. And the correlation matrix shows that it is negative 9.449. And it might round up. How many decimals does it want it to round to? Round to 3 decimals. So that'll round to negative 0.945. I'm pretty nice. If you're watching this and you just missed that one, email me. We'll fix it up. Very common error on that one. Explain the meaning of r squared. It's the percent of variation in y explained by the variation in x. I prefer to just write it out and not answer my Pearson's questions. So the age of a car accounts for 89.3% of the variation in the advertised price. So x would be explaining y. Why doesn't this model explain 100% of the variation? Well, because, let's see right here. It's never because there's not enough data. That's not an issue. It's not impossible for real world data to be perfect. I mean, it can be. There are other factors, but really, my Pearson, why you do this? It is other factors, isn't it? And what's weird, and you see, this is actually an issue. So Layla, I want to actually show you something right here. See how it says different dealers ask different prices for cars of the same age. So Layla just aced it right there. She is correct. I was confident, especially with Layla saying that. Thank you, Layla. Teamwork right here for answering these questions. The question I always look at that always makes me double think, because it's actually technically correct. If you have a model right here with an r squared, and I really need to tell my Pearson, like, hey, you got questions that have an issue. Here's 2 cars with the same years, like it has 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. It's positive this time. And car A and car B have a different what right here. I need to send them this. I need to like send them, I might even send them this video and be like, hi, hey, because car A and car B have a different asking price, now you can't have an r squared of 1. Because the only way to have an r squared of 1 is to have a correlation equal to what or what. The only way to get an r squared equal to 1 is you must have a correlation that is equal to what? The only way to get an r squared of 1 is to have a correlation that is either 1 or negative 1. Does that make sense? The only way to have all the variation explained is to have a correlation of either 1 or negative 1. And by virtue of 2 cars of the same year having different asking prices, you can't have a perfect correlation. So this is actually a true answer. Like, theoretically speaking, there cannot be a correlation of 1, which the question says, like, you know, why doesn't the model explain 100% of the variation? It's kind of more true, like in the real world application sense, that there are other things other than the age of a car that explains the price of the car. They're kind of going for this, but this is a theoretically true answer when it comes to the mathematics, that mathematically speaking, if 2 cars have different prices but the same age, a line can't go through it. And so only when you have data where it is perfectly linear can you get an r squared of 1 right here. And it should say, I don't know, they should reword the question. Now there's an r squared of 1, but now you cannot have an r squared of 1. So always had my issues with that question. See, they're good at tricking you. Don't let them trick you. Not today, my Pearson. Let's knock out another question right here. We're trying to do as many questions as we can right now from Chapter 7, but please ask a question if you have it. Like everyone's saying, if you have a question, let us know. We're just taking down every single question. This is the day where my Pearson loses. My Pearson, your time is up. My Pearson's... Why are we so mean to my Pearson? Let's do that dreaded SAT question. Here we go with the dreaded SAT question. We're doing the hardest questions we can find today on Stat Tool 1. Here we go. Standardized test scores are often used as part of a college application to college. Sure. Test scores in math and verbal are between 200 to 800, but have no units. They're just points. Answer the questions below. Well, we are going to predict someone's math score from their verbal. If you look here, verbal is on the X, which is the explanatory, and math is on the Y. The association between math scores and verbal scores is linear. It's positive, so that eliminates down to these two answers. Students with higher math scores typically have higher verbal scores. So if you notice here, it is positive. That brings us to these two answers. Students with higher verbal scores typically have higher math scores. Typically. Ooh, there's an outlier right there. That's probably me. Great math, bad verbal. So are there any students who don't fit the mold? Well, we just found it. The person who had a verbal of 250, you can see it right here, verbal of 250 if you trace downward. Let's show this on the screen. It's always good to draw on your plots. You'll see me do that a lot. That's how I was trained to do statistics, by Dr. Seaver. We got here the math score of the individual and the verbal score of the individual. That's 250 verbal. And that's 800 math, and that is for this individual right here, and that is a big residual. That's a big outlier right there. Here's their actual, and here's their predicted, and that's a mega residual of about like 500. They're way off the model. Oh my, no. Don't show completed version of the problem. Oh, we got to start it over again. So typically higher. Are there any students who break the mold? Positive. Students with higher verbal tend to have higher math. Yep. So these data have a correlation. Let's take a look right here. Students with one standard deviation above the math are expected to score above, so they would need to have above. Also, there we go. This is the R squared. 36.8% of the variability in math score is explained by the variability in verbal score. Great stuff right here. Students who score one standard deviation above in the math are expected to score one standard deviation above in the verbal math. So also 36.8% of the variation. This one uses R. We need to use R squared when we're talking about variability explained. Aha, now we get to the tough part. Here's where the question just shifts into top gear. So how are we going to do this? Well, once again, we've already mentioned this right here. So we have a regression solver. Here's the regression solver. It can be found on the Stat Tool 1 webpage under the modules section. So go right here, and I've built a solver for you to enter in the numbers. So with this solver, just download it right here. And then you're going to enter in the numbers. We're going to remove these so they don't distract us. Here's how the solver should look for entering in the summary statistics. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but you've already been given the correlation. The correlation is right there at the top, 0.607. So there's the correlation. Move this over here a little bit. There's the correlation. Let's continue on. It says a verbal score had an average. Now, verbal is on the x-axis. So that makes verbal the mean. Let's be very careful right here. This is where errors occur. We're not going to have errors on this one. Verbal is going to be the mean of the x's. So we go here to mean of the x. That's the verbal. 479.4. It's going to solve the equations for us because we're not here to solve math. We're here to interpret statistics. So we have a standard deviation of the verbal, which is going to be the standard deviation of the x variable. That's 184.4. Remember, verbal is on the x-axis, making it the explanatory variable. We've got here the mean of the math variable. Gotta be careful. This is where errors occur. As long as we type everything in the right way, then we'll do good. And the standard deviation for the x variable, for the y variable. Oh, did I say x or y? That is the math. Math is the y. This is the math. Math is the y. There we go. Boom, we got it. Write the equation of the regression line. So here is our intercept. Here is our slope. We're going to go right here. We're going to copy paste. There we go. Round to 3 decimal places is needed. Not today, my Pearson. We're getting our revenge right here. Ooh, that's some rounding right there. Be careful on your rounding. That's where mistakes happen. Interpret the slope right here. For each additional point in somebody's verbal score, for each additional point in someone's verbal score, the model predicts B1 increase in math score. So for each additional point in someone's verbal score, the model predicts that their math score will increase by 0.510. Predict the math score of a student with a verbal score of 298. So we just plug in 298 right here. Now, I would suggest doing this. 298 times 0.510 plus 267.351. All we're doing is plugging in the value right there. And we can go ahead and take this and we can double check our work, round to the nearest whole number. And what's great about the solver is this. This is why I like the solver. Is you go right here and it wants prediction for 298. You go right here, you predict for 298. And look, we get the answer. It just carries more decimals for us. So 419 is the answer if you can't see it right there. Every year, someone makes a perfect score on the SAT. Based on the model, what would the student's residual be? So we have to figure out the residual for the student. Now, the SAT has two components, a math and verbal. We know this person had a perfect score, so they scored an 800 on both sections. This is the toughest problem here because we need to talk about what we're doing. I'm going to do it a little bit slowly. I know I've been going through these pretty quickly, but we know that this person's math score is equal to 800. We know that, but we don't know what their predicted math score is right now. We know we want to find their predicted math score. To get their predicted math score, we need to go back to the equation. And going back to the equation right here, we're just going to go and plug in 800 for the verbal because they got 800 on verbal. So when we plug in 800 right here for their verbal score, we are solving for their predicted math score. This is going to get us their predicted math score. So now we have this person's predicted math score. Great job, Layla. Yep. And great job solving this. This is one of the most commonly wait, how did you get this? This is their verbal score, 800. Now we're solving for their predicted math. And so now that we have their predicted math score, so their predicted math score right here is 675.315. And then I think, so what do we do now? What is the residual? The residual, which is E, is equal to the actual minus the predicted. And we just put the context here. So these are just the context of the variable because this is the Y variable of interest. And this is the actual value. They actually made an 800. They were predicted to make this. So can you, it should be close to what? If you look 675 and 800, it's going to be about this. I'll solve it here exactly, but it should be close to about, yep, there we go. What do you think, Layla? Did you check the work as we're doing it? What do you think? Do you think we have it? Do we have the 100? I'm doing it. I knew I should have checked it. Let's find out. Oh my gosh. I've done this question literally 50 to 100 times. What did I do? Math score, that's right. The association, you know what it was? The music stopped. What did we do? Did we rounding error? 3 decimals, whole number, for additional point in verbal, math increase in math score. Do you see it? Alan! Alan, my Pearson's destroying me today. Alan took 201 and 320. Alan, send me that energy, man. Send me that energy. My Pearson is just destroying me. It's one of my worst performances ever. I mean that. I've gotten 3 questions wrong. Do we have the counter on? Because we do it as a ha 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 joke. Alan, thank you, man. I need that. I'm going to give myself an error right here. Do you see it? I need someone to catch the error on the screen. The error's on the screen. Help Brian. Alan, I need you to help me get that energy. Because look at what Brian answered right here. And then look at this right here. Look right there. And I need you to notice right here the error. I teach a whole course on regression. Sending K-pop energy? Heck yeah. Look at me, now look at you. Now look at me, now look at you. Send me that K-pop energy right there. That energy. That'd be dope. Send me that K-pop energy. What did Brian do right here? Increase, not decrease. The model predicts for each additional increase in verbal, we expect the model to increase, or we expect someone's math score to increase. Watch me just be get it wrong again. Great job, Reese. Yeah, it's so easy. It's positive. Positive. I teach a whole course on this. No, they're gonna be like, Brian, you can't. We heard word that you got a few questions wrong on my Pearson. You can't teach 320 anymore. Having trouble finding the residual for that problem. Ah, yes. Is it the last one, Reese? Are you on the last one down here? So for the last one down here, if someone makes a 1600, then what did they score on the verbal section? So I got the hard ones right. I can't get the easy ones right. So you help me with these questions. I'll help you with these questions. So what did they make on their verbal? So I want to know, this person made a 1600, like they actually made a 1600. What did they make on their verbal? So this person made a 1600. What did they actually score on their verbal? So what did they actually score on? They scored 800. So now if you go up here to this equation and you plug in 800 right here for what they actually scored on their verbal, you will get their what math score. Oh, thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. We're going to get some more usage of the Discord. Alan's a huge help to the Discord, one of our mods on Discord. Thank you, Alan. I'm trying to, we've only been going a week and we're 1/3 done. So we'll get their what math score right here. Alan, you should show everyone your points, because I think, Alan, do you have crazy points right now? I think Alan's got crazy points. Pretty much expected, yeah. More like predicted, or expected is fine. Like, yeah, I think it's okay to use expected. I would probably use predicted. Yeah, Alan is just like, he is absolutely insane points right there. Alan is just at ridiculous levels. This is. There's a bunch of people get just up to like crazy status. 800, close. 800 won't be the predicted math score. 800 is the what math score. So their 800 is the what math score. Like when we get this right here, someone's 800, I'll reverse it. So if you look right here, 800 is their, like, use an A word. Hey, what's up, Charlie? Yeah, exactly. Because 800 is their actual math score. They actually scored an 800, and then you'll go get their predicted, and the residual is the actual minus predicted. Reese, great job. Yep, 800 is the actual. That's what they actually scored, which is the Y value right here. So this is the Y value. Like, they actually scored an 800, and they were predicted to make this via the regression model. So, and Charlie's looking at the points right there. Is that making more sense, Reese? And thank you so much, Reese. Great job. Keep coming to office hours. Keep asking these questions. Say, hey, Brian, do this question. Slow it down. Can you explain this? That's awesome. People might be watching the end of this video, and they're just like, man, this... Anyway, it's literally, I'm one of those people. Is anyone else like me? Like, if you make one mistake, it snowballs. And we got to stop the snowball. That's why I did those questions. I was like, we're going to destroy my Pearson. We're not going to let my Pearson get the best of us. When I make one mistake, I start to get in my own head. And I start to be like, work, you got this. And I'm just like, no. It's a snowball effect. You might be like me. If you're like me, then you know what it's like when you make one. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, it's like you make one error and you're like, oh. Today is that day. I made a few errors here and there this semester, like on my Pearson, like misread something or didn't enter in the right decimals. It happens. Today is that day. Today is that day. But it's all right. Say, Brian, you taught this 10 years. How do you not know it? I don't know. What questions are there right now? Let's hop back to space. Oh, thank you, Alan. Yeah, when are you doing capstone? Have you taken time series yet? Who's in time series with me this summer? I mean, like, you probably won't know that unless you're like, I don't know. You have time series next semester with me, do you? Oh, capstone next semester. I think you have capstone next semester, you're saying. I'm excited for time series. I'm still writing the course right now. I'm literally getting the design. It'll be my second course I've designed. I designed 207. Ahood? Yeah. Oh my god, that's so awesome. Be good to see Ahood again. Man, so many good students. Like, just throughout the history of... Yeah. It's really... I get sad sometimes because people graduate. I mean, it's a happy moment when people graduate, but then I'm like, well, they're not going to be a student of mine anymore. One of my favorite moments in teaching. I've had a lot of favorite moments. Oh, that'll be fun. Tell me how it goes. I should sit in on the Python class and practice my Python. I would start, Layla. I would go through the speed runs. So ask Alan. Alan, you took 201 320. Like I was double checked, but no, Alan was in 201 and then 320. And Alan's at the higher level courses. Great job, Alan. Alan, what are your suggestions to people on how to study for these courses? How did you study for 201? How did you, it's just mainly 201 right now. What do you have? And we have speed runs now and stuff like that. So we've got more resources. But Alan's going to give you his advice on how to study for the test for Brian's test. So here's from a student. I would say, here's my advice. So listen to Alan first, probably. My advice would be to go through the videos and take notes and take breaks between them. Like go through the practice test videos, go through the practice test concepts, and then take breaks as you're watching the videos. So Kahoot, practice exams, rewatch lectures that you had confusion on. And Charlie too. Charlie took 201 and 320, right? Also, Charlie, I think you've taken both. Try to remember which one's Charlie. Were you in another? Because I'm trying to remember Charlie. It's like try to remember everything. Try to remember everyone's. It's so much easier when I see people in person. Not 320 yet. Charlie, yeah, you took 201, and then you want tips for 320. So drop some tips for 320. 320. I'm actually hopefully redesigning some material for that. So I'm going to create some more material you can go through. I'm trying to do that also. Yeah, I know. And Alan did great. Well, I mean, I'm not saying like what Alan made, but so Alan wrote Kahoots. Where are the practice exams on the Stat 1 website? Yep. I'm going to drop that link in the chat right here. Stat 1 website has the practice exams. They just updated our website, and we got to go in and make some changes to it and stuff. Here we go right there. There is the review material, exam 1. There's the review material for exam 1 right there. Exam 1 review material. What other questions are there? Oh, I was going to say one of my favorite moments. I taught, for the longest time, I taught 201 only. And then I started teaching 207. And 207, just if you talk about like a favorite favorite class to teach, not that like is my favorite class. I've never had a favorite class. I've had classes that I really think are very interactive and I like that. And so it's the environment the class creates. Not like, oh, this was my favorite class. It's just like, we're having a great mini-term class. We've got like a lot of interaction. Like William's making jokes. Like we all take it in a positive way. We just know William is like, we're here to cheer William up. That is our goal, right, Layla? Like our goal in class is to cheer William up with our positivity. Chapter 8, homework number 1, you got it. Let's go check that out here, Reese. We talk about some positivity. So I'm gonna get this loaded up right here. So one of my favorite moments in teaching was I taught 201, 320, and then I got to teach 474, which I now teach regularly. And I walked into class and I saw all these students for like the 3rd time. This is my 3rd time teaching some of them. And like everyone was like, Brian. And it was just, you walk into a class and sometimes you have to introduce yourself. You have to be like, hi, I'm Brian. And so many people in this class knew me. And of course I wanted, everyone who maybe had never had a class with me to, and it's not that they knew me, but it's that class had such a, just we walked in on day 1 and it was in a positive environment where people were like, hey, like I'm here, I'm ready to learn, I'm excited. And it was really cool. It was like this environment we try to build was there on day 1. And so we're here to bring Alan that positivity. Oh, thank you so much, Alan. But it's not that they knew me. I don't want you to think like, oh, Brian was happy that people knew him. It's that we already had this environment and I knew them. And so when I walked in, I remember Andrew was in that class. I can see Andrew right on the front row. I'm trying to think who else was in there. I just missed it. I remember walking in, everyone just being so excited. And it was day 1 felt like it felt like it was not day 1. But like, hey, it's day 1 and we played Mario Kart. Yep, I remember us playing Mario Kart. And so we always play Mario Kart on day 1. So we don't get to play that online anymore, but we would always play Mario Kart on day 1. And when I'm back on campus again, there'll be more Mario Kart. Oh, thank you so much, Layla. I appreciate that. No, we're here to have fun. We're here to learn. We can achieve both goals. Let's do this question right here. We got it loaded up. Here we go. Let's bring that energy, that positivity. So when we do the correlation right here, How do we find the correlation? How can we find this correlation right here? Thank you. I just want people to have positive energy. I want people to enjoy learning. That's my goal. Sometimes we get a little distracted. I want learning to be fun. Got to throw in some jokes. So we're going to take this r squared right here. We're going to square root it. And after we square root it, we're going to look at the what. After we square root it in the decimal form. Great job, Reese, right there. What are we going to do? Now, there's one more step. Great job, Alan. Say hey on Discord anytime and keep sending me those K-pop songs. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Alan. So Alan and I are all about some Discord or all about some K-pop songs. See you later, Alan. What are we going to do to, like, what are we going to check right now that we just square rooted this r squared? What are we going to do right here? Thank you. What are we going to do? Because this is the right answer. But what are we going to do? There's one last step, but I mean, it is the right answer. But we should know this. This is where mistakes are commonly made. Determine if it's positive or negative. Exactly. And it is positive because the slope goes up. So we're good. Slope goes up. Positive. We're good. Round to 2 decimals. Really? Don't want to copy paste today? Now copy paste. Ma Pearson, you stop that. That was my Pearson doing that to me, not me. So here we are with the output from the model. The output from the model is B0 and B1. With the output of the model being B0 and B1. B0 and B1 are the intercept and slope respectively. So here's B0 and here's B1. And there's the r squared. There's the, I think they're talking about the standard error. We don't interpret that in this class, so don't worry about that. They're talking about the standard error of the residuals. So I wish they made that more clear, but it's not really used in this problem. So interpret the slope and intercept. The intercept, so the interest rates, on average, the interest rates during this period increased at about, and that's going to be the slope value right here, at about 0.27. And what does it want? 2 decimals. Sure. Starting from an interest rate of about this right here. 2 decimals. There's some interesting rounding on that. I was a little worried. Now here's where maybe there's a bit of an issue. We have the model right here, and let's write it out. So let's go ahead and take this model, and let's write it out, and let's see how to use this. It wants for the year 2000. In the year 2000, how would we predict for this model? Remember, the model is y hat equals b0 plus b1x. But you be careful, you're not going to plug in 2000 right there because this is going to be important for how we use x. So what am I actually going to plug in for the predicted, what are we predicting? Oh, rate. Yeah, so the predicted rate of interest is equal to 0.154946 plus 0.27. Love all the decimals. And what do we plug in right here? 50. Great job, Layla. Excellent work. We're going to plug in 50. That looks like a 56. We're going to plug in 50. So that's just plugging in the value, knowing where the things go in the equation. And we go over here, and we times 50. Boop. And we get that, and we add to 0. And there we go. And we're going to round up to 14, I believe. So what does it predict to the nearest integer? There we go. Check answer. And would you expect the prediction to be accurate? We are out here at 50. So since we're out here at 50, it's important to know. Keep hitting the despair music. I need to change that. I don't even use it much. So since we're out here at 50, 50 is well beyond the model. 50 is going to be over here somewhere. And this region, when we go out to 50 right here, is well beyond the model. And when we go outside the x bounds, we are extrapolating. So we are definitely doing an extrapolation of the model. And when we do time series, the model would definitely have more uncertainty the further out you go. So there's going to be an extrapolation of the model right here. So not really, it's extrapolating 20 years. Key answer right there, key wording. And that's got it. Great work. What additional questions are there? We'll hop back here to space. Let's do a little chill music right here. Let me see. I don't always click all my buttons. I'm listening to the music, seeing which one I like. It's nice and relaxing. What questions are there? Most of the music on here is piano music. I'm like trying to play it along. Next week we should have the piano set up. Next week, piano. Stay tuned for piano on Stat 201. Let's think. Colin, what's up? Oh, did I tell you congratulations via the text? Did I tell you congratulations? If you want to say, everyone, what you got, because you got it, right? You got the internship and everything. Congratulations. Great job. I just love hearing that news. Sorry, like, a lot of times I'll have my, like, I don't, like, literally, I have my old phone right next to me right now. I don't have my current phone. So sometimes I'll go and I'll look at my phone and it'll be like 10 p.m. at night. And then I'll like, be like, oops, like, I don't want to message someone so late at night and then be like, Brian, you're waking me up. But no, that's such amazing news. Congratulations. You start June 14th virtually, project analyst internship. That is awesome. So Colin is going to be an intern at Disney. Already did the Disney experience, now doing project analyst internship at Disney. Congratulations, Colin. That's so good to hear. I get to meet so many like awesome students, and Colin, you're definitely doing that. You're definitely, you worked really hard for that. And I want to say something too. It's like, people realize this, like, successful people, and I'm speaking of myself too, a lot of times don't. Oh, thank you, Layla. It's so positive right there. I appreciate like the positive towards each other. The first time I applied to graduate school, I applied to do industrial organizational psychology. Is my graduate degree in industrial organizational psychology? Is Brian's graduate degree in industrial organizational psychology? Do I have a graduate degree in industrial organization? My undergrad is in psychology. Does Brian have a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology? Do I? Hint, I've never talked about it. That's a hint. Do I have a graduate? I do not. I do not. Great job, Charlie, right there. I do not. I do not have a graduate. I do not have a graduate degree in industrial organizational psychology. So what do you think that means happened when I applied to the graduate school? I didn't get accepted. Awesome, Colin. Anytime, swing by anytime and say, hey, man, good seeing you here. Thank you for swinging by. I got denied, or just rejected. Graduate school's like, nope. Yep, I have an MSBA. I have a Master's of Science Business Analytics with a concentration in applied statistics. So what I actually did, no joke, I actually went back and started doing an undergraduate in statistics. So I was worried about my GPA. I was worried about people like being like, hey, this guy, just doesn't have the courses and needs. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get more courses under my belt. So in 2010, I returned, started doing an undergraduate in statistics, which I never finished. And I've like joked, like, I wonder if they'd let me get my undergraduate in statistics if I just teach enough courses that I was supposed to take as an undergraduate. But I mean, I took them at the graduate level. But all you need to get into graduate school is an undergrad degree. So my psychology degree was enough. But I had taken, like, I took regression, which I teach. I took process control with Charlie Quick. Trying to think what else I took. I should look over my transcript, and see how many hours I'm short. Maybe I was really close. I think I was like a semester away from getting my undergraduate in statistics. And then my plan was to get my undergraduate and then apply to grad school. But, these moments that change your life. It was Dr. Lightnaker who walked up to me and she said, Brian, I think you should apply for our MSBA program. And I said, well, I'm working on an undergraduate in statistics. She said, but you already have an undergraduate in psychology, right? And I was like, yeah. She said, I think you should apply. And I said, well, I want to finish this degree and then I'll look into the graduate school. And she said, I run the admissions. I think you should apply. And I was like, oh, you're in charge of admissions and you think I should apply? What are you implying here? Are you saying you want me to apply to your program and you're in charge of admissions? So, because I was taking courses and instructors knew me and I'm really lucky that Dr. Lightner came up to me and was like, hi, I think you should apply to this. I think you'd be good at this. And so she identified my enjoyment of the topic, and she was right. And I'm doing what I'm doing today because someone walked up to me and said, they didn't say you're going to get accepted, but they were like, hey, you should apply to graduate school because we have a graduate program you would be interested in. And that changed the course of my life. That conversation. If that day I had not been walking through Haslam College of Business and run into Dr. Lightnaker, it's possible I would have never been in the MSBA program. Could you imagine that? Maybe she was looking for me. She's like looking for me. Like, she's like, I need to speak to Brian about this. Maybe we would have bumped into each other on another day. So my advice to people, if I'm going to put advice out there on this, it's just to look for opportunities, because the first time I applied to graduate school, didn't happen. Put myself out there, got rejected, didn't happen. Second time, someone encouraged me to apply, and I did and got accepted. And that controlled a lot of the course of my life. So keep looking for these opportunities. Just, if you fail at something, don't worry. I failed at so many. I failed at a lot of my Pearson questions today, but you know what? We're just putting that behind us. Those are my Pearson questions. Psh, whatever, my Pearson. Anyways, what questions are there? We got 5 more minutes. We might end a little bit early because it's Friday. Everyone's got to relax a little bit on Friday, and I'm going to go answer some emails here soon. Any last questions? We'll play one more song right here. Let's put on... We'll put on Sad Goodbye song. Last song right here, last questions. What are they? If you're working on a homework, we can still do a homework or a quiz. Test is coming up. I'll send out the tester browser here in a little bit. Mini term is just so quick, but I'm here running this marathon beside you. Cool. Still viewers. I was like, is it still here? Do you mind fixing my... Yeah, let's do that. Of course. Thank you for asking. Let's do this. Of course. Let's fix this. Watch this. Speedrun fixing it. We're going to speedrun fix this. You know what we say to my Pearson? Go check out that grade right quick there. That's a speedrun right there. Not today, my Pearson. There you go, Layla. It is fixed. Not today, my Pearson. We put in 1 extra decimal and my Pearson's like, nope. And we say, psh, whatever. We can put in extra decimals if we want because Brian's here to make sure we get those points. Don't do that on purpose. I'll still give you the points back. Don't, like, on every question be like, I'm just going to add more decimals because it should accept it. It would be logical. I'd probably email you after, like, the 5th time if you enter in, like, 10 decimals just to, like, make a point. I'd be like, if you could enter in the right amount or attempt to, that'd be nice. But I'd still probably give you all the decimals because we count your knowledge. We don't count decimal abilities. Awesome. Good work, Layla. And if you have questions, email me. If you're wondering, like, hey, Brian, do you have a video that goes over this topic? Or can you explain this topic? Or Discord me. But yeah. With that, I'm going to go eat some lunch probably. And I'm going to be sending out a few emails, reminders. We got some work, but we got this. We'll work together. Awesome. Great job, everybody. Puppet Shark. Are they going to do good on the test, Puppet Shark? What do you think? You know what he thinks. Yeah. Awesome. Great job, Reese. Excellent work today. Excellent work, Layla. Bye-bye, Tiny Puppet Shark. Yeah. Bye-bye, Tiny Brian. Bye-bye. No.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Charlie.